Monday, June 15th, 2026, and welcome. Welcome to Mind Heart Mondays. We are back with our second sight series. This is second sight. Y'all, give me a minute. Today is Monday and Tuesday are my long days, so I literally come out of my day job a bit frazzled, very tired. So, second sight. Yes, second sight. This is week 2 of my mind's eye. So last week I introduced us to the handsome mind. And I said we were doing 2 weeks of the handsome mind and 2 weeks of beautiful heart. So tonight is part 2 of the handsome mind. And I'm just going over my notes from last week to see if there's anything I want to take with us into our teaching tonight. So yes, last week I talked about to be in oneness, I must be spiritually aligned. Super, super, super foundational for us. And I mentioned that in order for the rest of my life to make sense or make faith, I must have that spiritual anchor and foundation. So then I talked about, I asked you guys a bunch of questions. Yes, I asked you, are you a thinker or a feeler? Am I in tune with my own thoughts? Or if I'm a feeler, I process through the heart, which, by the way, we're getting into next week. For all us feelers out there, we're going to talk about the beautiful heart. How's my mindset? Is it toxic, broken, or healthy, or healing? How's my spirit life? These were all questions that I posed to you last week. Do I have space to rest and reset? Do I need space to process? And then my last question was, hi, Epic. You're eating some Takis. Oh my gosh. Are they so spicy? I've never had Takis before, by the way. And then my last question was, do I know what to do to strengthen my mind's eye? So fast forward to tonight. They're super spicy. Y'all, I'm very specific and meticulous about my spice. And I used to get picked on a lot. I used to have my cousins say, you're just not a typical Mexican. You're just not a typical Mexican. You don't like that spice. I do. I'm just selective. The Takis would probably be too much for me. Everything I've heard about them. Super spicy. Although in high school, I used to like hot fries. Do you guys remember hot fries? Do they still sell those? And spicy Cheetos. Y'all, I'm a Texan. So Cheetos and Big Red was our oh so very unhealthy snack as a kid. Cheetos and Big Red. I know the spicy, but I'm Spanish. I can't handle it. We can't handle it. And I make great salsa, by the way. Homemade salsa. I do like to make salsa. Hi, Anita. How's it going tonight? You love hot fries? Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Perfect. How do you know this, Epic? How do you know this? We're talking about the 1980s. How do you know such vital information? vending machines. Oh my gosh, don't get me started. So my high school days, um, I hated the cafeteria. I would, if it was pizza, then I would be in the cafeteria, and actually fries. Pizza and fries, you could find me in the cafeteria, but otherwise, I was just going to the vending machine for a very unhealthy teenage lunch, which mine was Dr. Pepper, um, oh my gosh, Sun Chips. I couldn't remember, and it was the cheddar ones. Cheddar Sun Chips, Dr. Pepper, and some kind of chocolate candy bar. So if it was Snickers, that's what I would get. Milky Way, Kit Kat, for sure, Kit Kat, and Reese's peanut butter cups. You guys, I was not a healthy teenager. And I still love my snacks. Like that's never gonna go away. Cause you have to have your faves. You have to have your faves. They give you a little bit of escape. Especially after a long, hard day or weekend. Yeah. You look like you put ketchup on pasta. Oh my gosh. That's hilarious. I know you're trying to insult me, but that's really funny. And actually, I don't put ketchup on pasta. I put it on my eggs. Just so you know, I do like ketchup on my eggs. Ketchup on pasta is weird though. But I truly love Italian food, so yeah, that would be kind of weird and gross. No worries, I can take a joke. I know how to laugh at myself. I do. Well, I'm so happy you guys are here tonight. Everybody watching, I love y'all. I'm glad you're here. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. So tonight, I do have a little teaching for us. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you subbed. You're a new subby. That makes me happy. You guys, listen. So I was literally like, I'm gonna fall asleep, but I need to do my live stream because I love y'all. No, I'm not gonna leave you. I'm not gonna abandon you. And as soon as I start chatting with y'all, I just get energized and revitalized because again, why? Because this is where I'm to be. This is my true work, my true calling. My God bless you too. Hi, Joseph. You've been 7 for almost a year now. Well, you know 7's my favorite number. Did you know that? I'm 7 too, by the way. 25. This is what I tell everybody when they ask my age. As far as you're concerned, I'm 25 because it adds up to the number 7, which is my favorite number. I'm perpetually 7. Anyways, I do have a teaching. I must continue. Tonight, we're talking about the clutter and clarity of the mind. Are y'all ready for this? Are you ready? I have something for y'all tonight. You're going to want to take notes because I wrote down a lot yesterday. Yeah, so my Sundays these days, since I'm actually having the weekends off now, which is so wonderful. I'm so happy. Y'all, and it's been a long time coming. My hard work has finally paid off. But yeah, so my Sundays, if I don't do it Saturdays, I do a little bit of writing for our week. I wrote this yesterday. And per usual, if I promise I'll come back to your questions if I don't see them right away. Just bear with, okay, as I'm getting into this. because I do want you guys to have everything that I need to share tonight. If you watch the video of ice cream, do you like want ice cream? Because every time I watch, I could see that. Yeah, sometimes actually, especially if it's a food that you love. But you're 32, no offense. Actually, thank you. Your estimation of my age is actually younger than I am, so thanks. I appreciate that. Although I do feel like age is it's relative, really, because there are many of us who are old souls, probably feel older than we are, and there's others of us that are very youthful in our old age. So I don't know. I think it's just one of those, you're as old as you feel, and you can grow up fast or you can age in reverse. So it really just doesn't matter. What does matter, however, is how well you take care of your mind, because that is what's going to matter in the long run. Not how old you are, but how wise you are. So if I'm to learn how to use my second sight, which is what we're talking about this month, I must learn to renew my mind. What does this mean? Renewal is a continual state of newness. This means that my mind is constantly becoming new. Okay? And I'll get into this shortly, but this is a positive thing. This is, I am taking the old and in a lot of cases unhealthy mindset or thought process out, and I'm replacing it with a healthy and positive mindset. And again, this comes from my spiritual strengths, my spiritual mind. So, mind renewal starts in the spiritual part of the mind. So, as I've been teaching y'all, you have a spiritual part of your mind that pours into your intellectual part, your emotional part, okay? And most of us have some clutter in the mind. Why? Because our minds are constantly absorbing information, and most of the time, we probably don't have the luxury of time to sit and sort through every single thought that comes at us. Which is why I encourage a daily evaluation or assessment, which I'll get into in a little bit. So, for various reasons, we carry emotion or mental clutter. So, what I want to do tonight is I want to help you find which stage that you're in so that you can find your approach to gain clarity. Are y'all with me? This is super important, especially if you are in the stage where you can't get a grip on your thoughts. A lot of you struggle with anxiety, chronic anxiety, or depression, and so it's very challenging for you to make sense of what you're thinking. So I'm going to help you kind of assess where you are. Yeah. Yes, Joseph, exactly. I'm going to help you assess where you are. And then from here, I'm going to give you some kind of some therapeuticals. Now, of course, if we're doing this in a one-to-one session, we would get super deep into your specific stage and where you're at, and then I would assign you a very specific therapeutical to help you uh, regain this place in your mind. Okay, so first stage, and again, y'all ask anything. I promise I'll be watching the chat to answer anything y'all have. So stage one is toxic mindsets and toxic thinking. So some of the ways that I can sort of assess if I'm here would be some of these manifestations or struggles. Okay, so I'm just going to go one by one, and I'm probably going to elaborate a little bit on each of them. But again, as I'm sharing, don't hesitate to ask anything or share anything. So if you have toxic thinking or you possess a toxic mindset, most likely you're not on the journey to self-care and recovery. Secondly, passive thinking guides your decisions most of the time. So what is passive thinking? I've shared about this before. So present and passive. Passive thinking is your mind is sort of on autopilot. You're not really participating or cognizant of the thoughts or information that, well, the information that's coming at you, you're just sort of absorbing it and assimilating it into your thought process without even giving it a second thought. Okay, so passive thinking and present thinking is obviously you're very aware of what you're thinking. You're probably paying more attention to what's coming at you and deciding if you're receiving it as truth or not. So passive thinking is guiding your decisions. And third, I have reactionary. So you may be kind of in a reactionary space or an impulsive space and certainly undisciplined. So this means that your thoughts or your emotions or your behavior is in one or all of these spaces. Next is if undiagnosed mental illness, like let's say you have a mental illness and you haven't properly been diagnosed, chances are that this can lead to behavioral issues or interpersonal relationship issues. Okay, so in other words, if you're in a toxic space, you're very, very likely not even aware or attuned that you're in a toxic space. It really takes a little bit of a nudge for either someone to point it out or for you to come to that realization for yourself that something's not right, or I'm tired of my life being in chaos. Next, trauma speaks loud. Okay, so I would venture to say most of us have trauma of some kind or have had trauma, and we have, by the grace of God, sorted through. People that are in toxic spaces or toxic mindsets, because most often they are not in tune with this about themselves, their trauma is very loud. In other words, they kind of wear it on the outside, maybe even subconsciously, unknowing that, again, this comes out in being reactionary, impulsive, or just undisciplined. This is how this would manifest. Next is self-absorbed and self-accommodating. This is a signature, I would say, a signature space of someone who is in toxic mindset. They can't see past self. They probably aren't even able to see past self. Even if they're doing it intentionally, they may not be aware that they're doing it. So everything's about them. Everything has to work around their schedule, around their needs. They don't really have room to um, maybe even listen to someone else's needs because it doesn't register that it matters. Um, so, and this leads me into the last one that I have is a lack of empathy for others. And this lack of empathy comes from a space that they are just not equipped to have room for anybody else's um, needs. Okay. So they can't make room for others' needs, or again, they have struggles in their relationships because they don't know how to reciprocate relationship. And of course, that's across the board. Okay, so that's toxic thinking and mindset. So take that in for a minute, see if any of those kind of speak to you. And if they do, then you've gained some victory today because now you kind of understand a little bit about where you're at. And by the way, there is help and recovery for you. And when there is, then you move to the next stage. Anybody have any questions or anything? Don't hesitate to ask. The next is broken mindsets and thinking. And by the way, when I teach on this, I typically say this, that we are all on this trajectory, this trajectory from brokenness to restoration. Okay, so we're all somewhere in between, hopefully moving closer to restoration and recovery, which is why I'm here. So the important thing is to know where you're at so that you can have a vision to where you need to go. So broken mindset and thinking. Some of the ways you can assess if this is you, or this is where you're at, is to see if you are open to or on the path to recovery and self-mastery. If you're here, like you recognize, I need some help and I want some help, you have already moved out of the toxic state. Okay? Secondly, humility is more accessible. As opposed to in a toxic mindset or space mentally where you don't think you need anybody's help. In fact, you don't think you need anybody. When I'm moving into this humbling stage of recovery in my mental health, I have a humility that allows me to be more accessible. Like, maybe I do have some issues I need to work on. Okay. Next is a sensitivity to their own issues. This is kind of just echoing and paraphrasing what I just said, but a sensitivity to their own issues and a desire to change. This is the turning point. When you get to a space where I'm aware that I'm struggling, I have some issues that I need to work on, that I want to work on, and that I want to change. Because a lot of us have to have this sort of, um, well, it just depends on what kind of moment it is, but it's basically a light bulb moment that says something needs to change. This is when you can begin to expect the positive change. Next is trauma becomes a guide instead of what did I write instead of the Oh, the voice. So trauma becomes a guide instead of the voice. So it's almost like I'm no longer at the mercy of my trauma speaking loud. When I get to this stage, I realize that my trauma is actually guiding me to see what's going on with me instead of me not even being connected to it, and it's just on autopilot and default mode, if that makes sense. Next is if I'm in a broken mindset or broken thinking, I am likely to be quicker to acknowledge my selfish patterns and behavior. Okay, so again, the biggest key here is humility. Either something's happened within me that has caused me to lose the pride, lose the wall, and I'm just ready to deal with it. I'm ready to deal with it. Next is I can recognize passive versus present thinking. Okay, and actually, the closer you get to a restorative place or your recovery becomes stronger, then this is going to become easier for you actually. And then if issues with anxiety, like racing thoughts or ruminating, or if issues with depression or isolation, or not as to say if you have issues with anxiety, it would come in the form of racing thoughts or ruminating. Okay, some of us have this, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if your battle is with depression, then you may likely be more susceptible to being isolated and or disassociated or disconnected from others. And then lastly, you become more sensitive to any mental illness that you might have and the impact it has on others. So as opposed to in a toxic state, you don't even, it doesn't even register to you that you might even have some mental illness that you're battling and how it would affect others. But if you're in this broken space where humility has kind of gripped you a little bit, and you realize that my life affects others, you'll be very sensitive to this. That what I'm dealing with mentally, it's actually impacting everybody around me and everybody that I love, which is a good space to be because we do want to care about other people and how our actions affect them. Because everybody matters and everyone should be treated with honor and love. Okay, any questions so far? No questions? That's okay. Sometimes it's just, you're just going to take it all in and ponder it. So maybe tonight's one of those nights for us. Okay, so now I'm going to move into the space of healing and recovery. So how do I know I'm healing and I'm recovering? So firstly, I am on the inner healing journey and actively pursuing life of or in recovery. Okay, what is the inner healing journey? It is what I teach all the time. It is what life coaching is for. It is to help you truly know who you are and all parts of you, the broken parts, the healthy parts, the parts that are hiding because of childhood trauma or trauma in your adult life. That's what the inner healing is. This journey. It's coming to the space of bringing self to self. Okay? Secondly, if I'm in the space of healing and recovery, then I begin to recognize toxic or broken thought patterns in myself, and I'm willing to honestly assess for self improvement, self mastery. Okay, so again, this is active participation in my own mental health recovery, so that I can have a sound mind, because I need a sound mind to live life to the fullest. Next is humility begins to grow exponentially as ego loses power. Okay? So, humility is very handsome and very beautiful. If you're a humble person, it will radiate from your being. And it is the space where I can actually grow. If I'm not humble, I'm not teachable. And if I'm not teachable, I cannot learn, I cannot grow, I cannot become the fullness of who I was created to be. So, humility is essential for my healthy mindset and recovery. And yes, the more humble you become, the less ego will have the platform in your life. And I don't know, there are more glorious things perhaps, but that is certainly one of them. In the healing and recovery space, I begin to implement focal healing practices to renew my mind to healthy thinking and mindsets. Okay, again, this is my active participation in my mental well being. So I am implementing practices to keep my mind in a healthy space. Next is I start to see improvements right there. I start to see improvements and utilizing the tools for recovery. Next is victim mentality loses its grip and ownership and honesty take over. There is a space where, yes, you have a shift. You no longer see your life through the eyes of victimhood because you have begun to regain your power, your identity. This is huge, you guys, because once I begin to regain my identity, it's a beautiful space to be in. And really, what you've been through was designed to take you out. It was designed to steal your identity, to steal your peace, steal your joy, steal your love, steal your destiny. But oh no, as long as I'm here and you hang out with me, that's not going to happen. Next is less racing thoughts, more present thinking. Now, this is a beautiful space when you begin to take good inventory of your thoughts and you can actually handle them. It's wonderful. And then lastly, I put more confidence to what did I write? You guys can't even read my own writing. More confidence to become who you are and to approach the world and relationships in a healthy way. Okay? So, after all of this, where do you think you are? Where do you think you guys are tonight? And I'm going to give us a minute to just take it all in because I do have some remedy to share. I want to give you guys some remedy tonight to share with you because we're talking about the clutter, which we just overviewed. And now I'm going to give you some clarity so you can start implementing these for yourself, wherever you are, toxic, broken, or healing. And how's everybody doing tonight and this week? Anything on the horizon for y'all this week? I'd love to know. Again, my one-to-one sessions, I still have a lot of availability, you guys, for June. Especially as my calendar opened up, like I said, literally just last week. My calendar, it's opened up a lot more. I'm very happy about this. So yeah, reach out if you're looking for one-to-one mentoring and coaching, and we can set something up for y'all. So let's move on then. Nobody has any questions. By the way, if you're watching this on the replay, don't hesitate to ask or share anything. I will read everything you guys put there. Practical ways to help declutter the mind and bring clarity. Are you ready? Number 1. If I don't get number 1, the rest is it's not gonna matter. I have to get number 1. Number 1 is my foundation, and my foundation must be solid to handle the rest. So, in order for me to have a less cluttered mind and have more clarity, I must unplug. Unplug. This is absolutely necessary to declutter the mind. We must actively participate in this necessary pause, rest, and reset for our mind and our brain. If I never stop to rest, I won't find natural peace, or mental peace, or natural peace for that matter, actually, because this is my off and on switch to allow me to have a peaceful mental state. Okay? I must learn to unplug. For some of us, this is challenging. Some of you don't know how to stop, how to not be busy, how to not make another commitment or appointment or obligation, or I need to do this because somebody asked me to do it. I need to do that because if I don't. So this problem, and it can be a problem of busyness, it's actually, in a lot of cases, it's anxiety. You do not know how to be still, likely because there is some trauma that you are unknowingly dealing with, or maybe you do know you're dealing with it and you just don't want to deal with it. So your remedy for yourself is to escape into other people's lives and focusing on everybody else so that I don't have to think about myself. I don't have to focus on myself, and I certainly don't have to deal with whatever's ailing me. But the problem is, burnout is a real thing, and it wreaks havoc once it grips you, and we don't want that. So if this is you, you have to maybe even schedule some unplug time for yourself. One of the simplest ways, and I'm going to get into this, yes, on number 2, I'm going to get into this. So yeah, let's go ahead and segue into number 2 is to have the daily meditation and release for yourself. If you cannot simply sit still and unplug, turn everything off, find a quiet space in your house and just be still. If you can't do that, then maybe you need to bring something into the stillness to help you transition into stillness. And this is what I'm talking about. Number 2 is finding daily meditation and space to release. One of the best ways, and I have a class on this, I literally teach a class on self-dialogue through writing, which I call novelty notes journaling. It's journaling. So it's taking a little time to write down what you're thinking or how you're feeling. It's a quiet mental release. And most of the time, unless we were to do it together and you share it with me or share it with someone else, it is a private space to release your mental clutter without feeling super vulnerable and exposed. And it can be, like I said, it can be private. You can keep it to yourself. But this practice, especially when it's done on a routine or a ritual, like a regular basis, I mean, I would suggest to do a journal certainly before bed, the end of your day, to release it all. But yeah, I mean, you could do it in the morning, you could do it in the middle of the day, and if you did it 3 times a day, then that's even better. But as long as you had a routine with this is going to help you a lot. And when you do this, you are making room for what I call sorting and processing the inner being. Okay. Number 3 is stillness. Stillness is a meditative practice that helps bring your mind to present thinking and, in essence, catching up to synchronize your thought processes. Okay? So, this is an excellent space when you've mastered mind renewal. And in fact, you probably would get here when you're there, when you actually have already learned how to actively kind of sift and sort through the information that's coming at me. Stillness. And then lastly, or is it lastly? Is it? Yes. Is the inner healing journey, which is what I do. It is what I teach, and I have a signature step process that I teach when we do these one-to-one sessions. The inner healing journey. So one of the last steps I call the divine exchange, and this is where I essentially release my old in exchange for my new. So whether this is a mental space, an emotional space, or a spiritual space, this is what we can expect to let go of all the toxic and broken thinking for restored and healthy mindset. All right, y'all. With that said, this is the end of our little sesh for tonight. I hope this blessed you, and I hope everyone is doing well. I hope you have a beautiful week. If you need anything, I'm here. Don't hesitate to reach out. I will be back here Wednesday, Lord willing. And I'll be here for our anxiety and depression support stream. And then I'll be back Friday. So I love y'all so much, and I will see you soon. I wish you a beautiful week. And yeah, that's all. See you later.